Namo Buddhaya, the Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram, the large sutra on perfect wisdom, the chapter 36, the exposition of the purity of all dharmas, the weak medium path. This purity, said Śāriputra, is deep, O Lord, because of absolute purity, Śāriputra. Because of the purity of what? The Lord, because of the purity of form, etc., to the knowledge of all modes. The medium path, Śāriputra, a true light, O Lord, is the perfection of wisdom. The Lord, because of absolute purity, Śāriputra, because of the purity of what? The Lord, the purity of the infinite light results from the purity of the six perfections, the various kinds of emptiness, etc., to the knowledge of all modes. The strong medium path, not subject to rebirth, is the perfection of wisdom, said Śāriputra, the Lord, because of absolute purity, Śāriputra. The purity results from the non-passing-on of what? The Lord, the fact that form, etc., to the knowledge of all modes are not subject to passing on or to rebirth. That is the purity. The strong, weak path, Śāriputra, undefiled, O Lord, is purity, the Lord, because of the absolute absence of all defilement, Śāriputra. Through the non-defilement of what is the purity? The Lord, the purity results from the fact that form, etc., to the knowledge of all modes are in their essential original nature free from the defilements. The strong medium path, Śāriputra, the purity is without attainment or reunion, the Lord, because there is absolutely no attainment or reunion, Śāriputra. Through the non-attainment of what and through the non-reunion with what is their purity, the Lord. Through the non-attainment of form, etc., to the knowledge of all modes, and through the non-reunion with them. The strong path, Śāriputra, purity, O Lord, does not reproduce itself, the Lord, because absolutely there is no reproduction. Śāriputra, the purity results from the non-reproduction of what? The Lord. It results from the non-reproduction of the five skandhas. The path is opposed to the world. Śāriputra, purity means no rebirth, whether in the world of sense desire or the world of form or the formless world. The Lord. Because of absolute purity, Śāriputra, how is it that purity means no rebirth in the triple world? The Lord. Because when the own being is considered, there is no rebirth in any of the three worlds. The path is opposed to the duality between the cognition and the cognizable. Śāriputra, purity, O Lord, doesn't cognize the Lord because of absolute purity, Śāriputra. How is that purity doesn't cognize the Lord? Because one is benumbed by Dharma. Śāriputra, purity doesn't cognize the skandhas, the Lord, because of absolute purity, Śāriputra. How is it that purity doesn't cognize the skandhas, the Lord, on account of the emptiness of own marks? Śāriputra, purity doesn't cognize all dharmas, the Lord, because of absolute purity, Śāriputra. How is that purity doesn't cognize all dharmas, the Lord, because it doesn't apprehend them? Refutation of an objection with regard to the path. Conclusion of the dual purity of the path of development. Śāriputra, the perfection of wisdom neither helps nor hinders all knowledge, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Śāriputra, how is it that the perfection of wisdom neither helps nor hinders all knowledge, the Lord? Because of the established order of Dharma, Śāriputra, the purity of the perfection of wisdom does not take hold of any Dharma, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Śāriputra, how is it that the purity of the perfection of wisdom does not take hold of any Dharma, the Lord, because the Dharma element has been taken hold of. Subhuti, the purity of the skandhas, the Lord, is due to the purity of the self, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti, for what reason is the purity of the skandhas due to the purity of the self, the Lord? The absolute purity results from the unreality of both self and the skandhas. Subhuti, the purity of the perfections, etc., to the 18 special Buddha dharmas is due to the purity of self, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti, the purity of all dharmas is due to the purity of self, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti. For what reason is the purity of self the purity of all dharmas? The Lord. It is purity because of the unreality of self. Subhuti. To the purity of the self is due the purity of the fruit of a stream winner, and so is that of the fruit of the one's returner and every returner of arhatship and of the enlightenment of a Pratika Buddha. The Lord. On account of the emptiness of own marks. Subhuti. To the purity of the self is due the purity of enlightenment, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti. For what reason is the purity of enlightenment due to the purity of the self? The Lord. On account of the emptiness of own marks. Subhuti. To the purity of self is due the purity of all knowledge, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti. For what reason is the purity of all knowledge due to the purity of self? The Lord, on account of the emptiness of own marks. Subhuti. The dual purity is not attainment or union, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti. Of what reason is the dual purity not attainment of reunion, the Lord? Because in Dharma, non-defilement and non-purification are the same. Subhuti. The boundlessness of the skandhas is due to the boundlessness of the self, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti. For what reason is the boundlessness of the skandhas due to the boundlessness of the self, the Lord, on account of absolute emptiness and of the emptiness without beginning or end. Subhuti. This then, O Lord, is the perfection of wisdom of the Bodhisattva and the great being, the Lord, because of absolute purity. Subhuti. For what reason is the perfection of wisdom of the Bodhisattva the great being, the Lord, on account of the knowledge of the modes of the path, all knowledge, and established in the samsara or nirvana. Subhuti. The perfection of wisdom of the Bodhisattvas, the great beings, O Lord, is not got on the shore this side or on the shore beyond, or in between the two, the Lord, because of its absolute purity. Subhuti. Subhuti. For what reason is the perfection of wisdom of the Bodhisattvas, the great beings, not got on the shore this side, or on the shore beyond, or in between the two, Lord, because of its absolute purity, Subhuti, on account of the fact that all dharmas are the same in the three periods of time. Farness from perfect wisdom owing to lack of skill in means, Subhuti. If again, O Lord, a son or daughter of good family who belongs to the great vehicle would unskilled in means cognize the perfection of wisdom by making it into a basis, he will thereby part from the perfection of wisdom and get far away from it. Lord. Well said, Subhuti, well said. So it is, Subhuti, for also names and signs are sources of attachment, and why? Because all dharmas are signless and nameless, Subhuti. How, O Lord, are also names and signs sources of attachment? The Lord, here Subhuti, a son or daughter of good family, who belongs to the great vehicle, seizes on the perfection of wisdom through a name, seizes on it through a sign, and having seized on it through a sign and a name, they will part from the perfection of wisdom, will get far away from it. By minding it, they will part from the perfection of wisdom, will get far away from it. Nearness to perfect wisdom, owing to skill and means. Subhuti. It is wonderful, Lord, to see the extent to which this perfection of wisdom of the Bodhisattvas, the great beings, has been well taught and well rounded off. The cognition of entities as a point to be shunned, Śāriputra. What Venerable Subhuti is attachment on the path of the Bodhisattvas who course in perfect wisdom, and what is non-attachment? Subhuti. Here, Venerable Śāriputra, a Bodhisattva or a son or daughter of good family, unskilled in means, will perceive the skandhas as empty, and that is an attachment. As skilled in means, he will perceive past dharmas as past dharmas, future dharmas as future dharmas, present dharmas as present dharmas, and that is an attachment. Moreover, it is an attachment if a bodhisattva, while perceiving a basis courses, beginning with the first thought of enlightenment in the six perfections, points to the shunned and antidotes and points to be shunned. As again, Venerable Śāriputra, you have said, what is the non-attachment of the bodhisattvas, the great beings, who course in perfect wisdom? The bodhisattva, the great being, who courses in perfect wisdom and who is skilled in means, does certainly not perceive form as form, feeling as feeling, etc., not past dharmas as past dharmas, etc., nor does it occur to him, I give a gift to him, I give a gift. This gift I give, I guard morality. That morality I guard. To that do I guard morality, etc. To I beget merit, thus I beget merit. I enter on the Bodhisattva's certainty or salvation. I will purify the Buddha field. I will mature beings. I shall reach all knowledge. The Bodhisattvas who course in perfect wisdom and are skilled in means do not make any of these discriminations. And why? On account of the 20 kinds of emptiness, these are the non-attachments of a bodhisattva, a great being who courses in perfect wisdom and who is skilled in means. Once more, the points to be shunned. Chakra. In which manner, Subhuti, is there attachment on the part of a bodhisattva, Subhuti? Here, Kaushika, the bodhisattva, perceives thought, perceives given, etc. to wisdom. There are 20 kinds of emptinesses, perceives the Buddhas, the Lord. Him perceives the wholesome roots which have been planted under the Buddhas, and after he has heaped up all these, rolled them into one lump and weighed them up, he converts them into the Atma straight and perfect enlightenment. This is an attachment on the path of a bodhisattva, and though he does not course in non-attachment. And why? For it is possible to turn over the essential original natural form, feeling, etc. Once more, the antidote. Moreover, Kaushika Bodhisattva, who wants to instruct others in the Supreme Enlightenment, who wants to instigate them, fill them with enthusiasm for it, encourage them towards it, he should do so with a mind which keeps in agreement with true reality, and also in such a way that when he courses in perfect wisdom, he doesn't produce such discursive ideas and as I give a gift, etc. It is thus that the Bodhisattva rouses and incites others. In that way, he doesn't cast himself away, and the manner in which he rouses others is the sanction of the Buddhas. It is thus that the Bodhisattva should rouse and incite to the Supreme Enlightenment, and it is in this way that that son or daughter of good family succeeds in abandoning all the points of attachment, subtle attachments. Lord, well said, Subhuti. You who point out to the Bodhisattvas, the great beings, these points of attachment, I will now announce to you other, more subtle attachments. Listen to them well and pay good attention. I will teach them to you. So be it, O Lord. And Venerable Śāriputra listened in silence. The Lord, here is Subhuti, a son or daughter of good family, who has set out for the Supreme Enlightenment and attends to the Tathagatas through a sign. But so many signs, so many attachments, whatever wholesome root there may be on the part of those Tathagatas in the interval of time, which begins with the first thought of enlightenment until full enlightenment has been fully known, until they have reached final nirvana in the nirvana element which leaves nothing behind, and until the establishment of the good law. To all that he attends through a sign, and having attended to it, dedicates it to the Supreme Enlightenment. But as long as he attends through a sign, so long there is attachment. And as to the wholesome roots which are quite free from attachment, of those Tathagatas who are themselves free from all attachment, and as to the wholesome roots of other beings as well, to those also he attends through a sign, and having attended to them, he dedicates them to the Supreme Enlightenment. But as long as he attends through a sign, so long there is attachment. And why? For the Tathagatas should not be attended to through a sign, nor should the wholesome roots of those others be attached to through a sign. The depth of Dharma, the Subhuti. Deep, O Lord, is the perfection of wisdom, Lord, because all dharmas are isolated in their essential original nature. Subhuti, I pay homage, O Lord, to the perfection of wisdom, O Lord, the Lord. For the perfection of wisdom is unmade, it has not been brought about, and so it has not been fully known by anyone. The abandonment of all attachment. Subhuti, hard to know fully are all dharmas, Lord, because they have the essential nature of Buddha dharmas. The nature is a no nature. May Bodhisattva thus cognize and see the essential nature as a known nature which has not been brought about. All points of attachment will then be abandoned. The fact that it is hard to understand, Subhuti, hard to know fully, O Lord, is the perfection of wisdom, Lord, because the perfection of wisdom has not been seen by anyone, nor heard, nor felt, nor discerned, nor fully known. Unthinkability, Subhuti, unthinkable, O Lord, is the perfection of wisdom, the Lord, because the perfection of wisdom has not been discerned by anyone and it has not been cognized by form, etc., by the Buddha Dharmas. This is the end of 36th chapter of the large sutra on perfect wisdom, Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram.